Welcome everyone to the STLX Meetup. Woo. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Next slide, please. Please do take advantage of this opportunity to network in the chat. You can put your name, your pronouns if you wish, where you're from. So far, we know our furthest guest is currently in Japan, maybe on a bus. He was last time. What your career focus is, if you want to, you can put in something like your LinkedIn profile or your Twitter handle. And then we also have hashtags to signal a specific area of interest. So if you're hiring or looking, if you're willing to mentor, or if you're looking for a mentor, but please do take advantage of the opportunity to network. And Amanda, if you want to take the next one.
Sure. So you can join our Slack channel on STL Slack. You can also use your phone and scan this QR code here you see with the cute little dinosaur in it. We have a general feed where we post about upcoming events, anything UX related. So if you'd like, you can join our Slack channel either with the QR code, or maybe we can get that link in the chat for people.
That rebrandly will take you to it. It's like a tiny URL.
It is pretty tiny, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And you can also follow us on Meetup. We always post our events on Meetup, and we like to send out reminders as well. So you can, again, follow the dinosaur or follow the tiny link, find us on meetup.com with STLX Meetup. And also like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We post all of our events, all the recordings of our events on there. So if you aren't able to make the meeting, or if you have to leave early, you can still catch it on our new YouTube channel. And we also like to make sure that we have captions for our meetings. So that is available as well. And if you need captions during the meeting, you can hit the CC live transcript down at the bottom there. Let me or Holly or Kim know if you are having trouble accessing the captions.
Yep, and you can also, if you do, turn on live transcript and the captions are in your way at all, you can click and drag the box around so you can move them to another location on your screen if they're in your way at all. And Danielle is also part of the STLX group. She can help you tonight as well.
All right, Holly, did you want to introduce the team?
Oh, sure. So I'm Holly. My sidekick, Al, and other co-president is not with us tonight. They're furthering their education. So Al Lopez and Super Jupiter, the Wonder Dog. And then we have our social media manager, Danielle Patton, and past president, Martha Valenta. And then we also have our newest team members, Kimberly Camp, Elena Jones, and Amanda Vanderhayden. I think I'm elected to read these slides because I'm the only one that can say your last name.
Yeah,
besides you.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
Nailed it.
So super excited to have them. Tonight, we are absolutely thrilled to have 1904 Labs, as our guest. We have the fantastic Miss Lisa Bruce, who is a passionate advocate for human-centered products and processes that meet business goals. She facilitates experiences that help internal and external stakeholders embrace the why behind the what. She combines her experience as a UX researcher, product analyst, information architect, UX strategist, and experience designer to help clients better understand their own needs and the needs of their users. And then we also have Kit Menke. He's the practice director of data engineering for 1904 Labs. He's been working with big data and distributed systems to build data pipelines and platforms. This led to an interest in the intersection between data and human-centered design. In his spare time, he spends time with his wife and 3 cats and enjoys going camping and hiking. So huge thanks to Kit and Lisa for joining us tonight and taking time out of their busy schedules to make us all a little bit smarter.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Mm-hmm. And so you can find us in all the places. If you want to get in touch with me or with Al, all of our contact info is over on the right. Fastest way to get me is on Twitter at 314UXHolly. Quickest way to get Al is via email at al@alexiana.com. And then you can join, we have a LinkedIn page, an STLX group on LinkedIn. We have Twitter, we have Gmail, Facebook, a rarely but more frequently used now Instagram.
We're getting on it.
Yeah, we're trying. We're on the struggle bus a little bit. And we also have a YouTube channel. We do post all of our meetings that we're able to on there. We do include closed captioning, and I am the transcriptionist. So there's a little bit of a lag because there's processing time. So it won't be tomorrow, but soon. And then Amanda, why don't you tell them about benefits and then we'll hand it over.
Definitely. So we'd love it if you'd become a member of STLX, either through a business membership, pro membership, or a student membership. There are perks to doing all of these. You know, you get discounts to events, swag, stuff like that. So if you'd like to become an official member, you can follow that link with the dinosaur and support STLX.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it. We'll go ahead and stop sharing our screen. Lisa, are you ready to be the big show, you and Kit?
Absolutely.
Okay, it is all yours.
All right, hopefully everyone can see the screen. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So thanks, Holly, for the wonderful introductions. We'll kind of skip past this and get right into logistics. Lisa, you want to take it away?
Sure. So, quick ask. If you have a name that often gets mispronounced, feel free to go up in Zoom and click on that little 3 dots and rename yourself if you would like, just to help us know how to say it correctly. I found that that is sometimes helpful. Also, if you want to include your pronouns, I included mine, but we would love it if you would do that. So just some quick mechanics of the meeting, things that you guys all know, but we're going to just touch base on it. Please stay muted when you're not speaking. I know folks are bashful and don't always like to leave the camera on, but we would love to see your faces and we would love to get some sense of who's out there. So I really want to invite you to, if you're comfortable, turn on your camera, at least during the parts where we break out into breakout rooms especially. Of course, it's your choice, but we would love that ability to connect a little more. To take turns speaking tonight, we have quite a few people with us. We're going to ask that you go to the chat and hit *raise. And we have Alexandra from 1904 Labs and also Holly, who will be keeping an eye on the chat so that we'll get to folks as you put things into the chat, but that should keep it a little cleaner so we don't step on each other. And we have Laura available if we have any problems or anything technical going on. So we have several folks from our team. Something I do want you to know is that we're going to go in and out of breakout groups at first. Each group will have a facilitator, and the facilitator will be doing some scribing for your group. So all you have to do is think and throw out ideas. And I really want to invite you, even if you feel a little nervous, It's okay just to listen. If you're like, nope, I really don't have a lot to share, that is totally fine. But we really want to invite you, the more you engage in what we're doing tonight, I think the more you're going to get out of the session, because there really is a method to our madness, and we will reveal that, but we won't reveal that until much later.
All right. So
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, so quick question is, do any of these look familiar to you? So if you take a look, you might see from the business, you might have heard some things like, why can't IT deliver fast enough? Or why isn't IT working on what's important? Or maybe if you're on the data engineering or IT side of the house, you've heard, what's the roadmap? Who's actually using this? Why are they using it that way? Or why are they using that tech stack? And then if you're a user experience person, you might have heard something like, why is this so slow? And why doesn't this have what I need or what the users need? Does that ring for anybody? Does anybody hear some part of their work in there? Yeah, see some nodding head, and feel free to jump in the chat with it. So if any of these feel like you, then you are in fact in the right place. And we really want to invite you to, and anybody else, you're in the right place as well. But these are the 3 areas that we're going to spend some time on tonight trying to understand.
And so just to set some context for kind of what we're talking about today, because we can't cover everything in about an hour and a half. So really what Lisa and I are interested in, and what we hope you all get out of it, is that intersection between data engineering and user experience. And this, we're going to talk from our experience working with a lot of big companies. So kind of the caveat at the bottom is we generally work with very large companies here in St. Louis, kind of Fortune 500 type companies. So our experiences are colored by those clients that we work with, but it could also apply to smaller companies as well. We're also working with data and teams of a certain size. So when I mean data of a certain size, I'm generally talking bigger than Excel, probably more data that can fit on a server or one computer. I hesitate to say big data because that's also relative, but in general, that's kind of what I mean. And then also working with teams of a certain size. So enough data that you would need a team of people to help wrangle it and make sense of it, and have kind of a reason for data engineers and user experience to need to get together.
So what's going to happen tonight? I want to give you just a little tiny preview so you kind of have a sense of the arc of what's going to happen. So we're going to do a little getting to know you. Now, we've actually done a little bit of that already, but we have some things that we want to ask you about coming up next. And then we're going to break out into some groups, and we want to talk about your experiences. So we're going to talk about silos, which exists in larger and some smaller organizations, but also challenges, which exist in any work environment. And then we're going to come back. We're going to share some of what we gathered. And then we're going to go back into groups again. And we're going to talk about how we might build some bridges. And then we're going to come back and share that. Now, why are we doing that? We really want to get a sense of who's here, of what you're thinking, of what's important to you. We have a presentation, and that's what will come. We'll take a little 5-minute break when we're partway through. Then we'll come back, sort of our secret sauce. We'll show you how we do it, what some of the insights are that we have, and how we are working at it. And then we'll take questions and answers. And then we want you to let us know how we did. So that's kind of what you can expect coming up this evening. So feel free, if you need to step away for a minute, step away and come back, do what you need to. We're just really glad to have you here, and we're really glad to have you in the conversation, because that's what's really important to us tonight, is to be able to really talk about the stuff and explore it with folks who are interested.
And on that note, like Lisa said, we're going to start with a little participation. Hopefully it's not going to be too painful here. We're just going to dip our toe in the water. So what we're going to do is, I know some of you may have already introduced yourself in the chat, but really there's 2 other pieces of information that we would like to know from you all. So in a chat message, just put your your name and job title if you haven't already. And really the two things that Lisa and I want to know are, which group do you identify the most with out of these three? So the first one being data engineering and IT, the second one being some sort of user experience role, and the third one usually on the business side or some sort of a stakeholder. And then the second thing is, in a sentence or less, this time will be valuable to me if I what? So go ahead, take a second right now, drop that in the chat so that we can figure out who you all are.
And if I could get either Holly or Alexandra just to maybe pick up a couple of them and just kind of give us a little bit of a sense of who's here. Maybe not all of them, but just a couple.
Sure. It looks like we have a lot of UX people on the phone. People are really looking forward to actively listening and participating in the conversation. A lot of user experience, product, and strategy. This time will be really valuable to me if I can bring back some new mechanisms for collaboration to my teams. Somebody who's a job seeker is really looking to observe and learn. Valuable feedback loop between users and data engineers. A lot of great things going on in the chat.
That is super exciting. So, are we ready to do our first breakout, Kit?
I think so. Let's, you want to introduce it for everyone?
Sure. And I think I'm probably going to be taking a group because we have a very large crowd tonight, which is wonderful. We're delighted to have you here. So Holly, are you pretty well ready? And I'll give a little bit of an intro.
I'm all ready to rock and roll with the breakout rooms.
Okay. So when you go into the room, you will be there with a facilitator. There are 5 of us, and we're going to ask you to generate some ideas for us, and we're going to scribe for you. So we'll share our screen with you, and we'll be working on Miro. We will be grabbing ideas from you. You can drop them in the chat. You can also speak them out loud, but we're going to generate ideas as quick as we can. Then we're going to decide which 3 we really think are the most interesting or the most meaningful to our group. And when we come back, we're going to present those. And it doesn't have to be the person facilitating presenting them. So if you're somebody who likes ideas and likes to chat, we really invite you to step up. So this might be a little bumpy. We'll see how it goes when we go in, but we're going to run off to the rooms and take 10 minutes. So we're going to go super fast, and I'm looking forward to it. So anytime you're ready, Holly, let's go.
Okay, you should all have a join room link. Okay, I think you're good to go, Lisa.
Okay, so I know that was super fast, you all. How was it for you? Give me some verbal, because I can only see a few of you. Were you able to get some of your thoughts out?
Lots of good comments.
Yeah,
Mhm.
good stuff.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share the screen, and we're going to go through each group 1 through 5, and we're going to have someone share. If you need me to make things bigger, feel free. Just let me know, because I'm going to drive us through the board that we captured on. Hang on for just a second. Let me flip that up. And we'll start out with Steve's group, group 1A.
We ended up having quite a bit to talk about. What we didn't get to was the very last frame, though. We grabbed, I think, what a lot of the themes were around misaligned teams, especially in time zones or around the world for that matter. The pandemic stressed that with a lot of those time zones with employees all over the place. Then we had a next one, which was that business doesn't understand that IT has a lot going on. And sometimes their project is most important all the time. So trying to communicate to them that there's a lot going on besides just their project is often a roadblock in order to answer those questions. Why haven't you guys gotten any further yet, etc. And then A couple of the next ones were really around Agile. So one of the big ones with the C-suite thinks that it means you guys can do this faster. It's going to be a better product. We're going to be out the door as soon as possible. Or it could be some of the other ones like lapsing back into waterfall when it doesn't quite work out well the first time. Overall, we think it's really that misconceptions about Agile in general, especially from probably, I think, from that business silo versus that IT silo, because it might mean different things in there. Any other comments anyone else from the group would like to make on that one?
Okay. All right, we will go on to group number 2. And I see Kelly still working in here. So for group 2, can you talk us through your top 3, or it looks like maybe 4?
Sure. I just grabbed some that I felt like I kind of heard some overlap in the discussion. We had a really good discussion. So it sounds like there's a lot of challenges between misalignment of priority and maybe even in the ability to communicate properly between teams and groups, right? Between marketing wants one thing and business wants one thing and IT wants one thing and UX wants one thing, and even just trying to align on that. It seems like it's a problem. There might be some data disconnects within the data, like IT maybe needs the data to be formatted in a certain way, or like needs it in a certain way, but there's not really communication between those teams that are getting the data to them, and so that causes, right, an inefficiency and ineffectiveness and a lot of churn and a lot of time. And then there's just like trying to convince people to trust a party with data, right? Like an individual with data or a different group with the data that they already have. And then maybe just lack of clarity overall between groups, like what's being made and for what product, and like the UX and what's the background. And there's, lack of communication when people are siloed off between those groups. Does anybody else want to add anything or color that from our group? No?
Great, thank you. Let's move on to group number, let's go back to group number 3. All right. So who's up for group 3?
Yeah, I'll speak for group 3. So the first one here is the kind of like documentation. So conversation arose about, one side has it documented or does not have it documented, but they just expect another organization to kind of understand. The next one here, kind of too many links in the chain, and the corresponding other red cards by it on the left side are, sometimes it's best for the UX team to be able to communicate directly with the developers, but sometimes that straight level communication isn't there. Instead, they have to go through a few links to get there, and then stuff gets lost in translation or it takes forever. And that can happen with, large organizations. And then the third one is, we use the word silo. I don't know if that's allowed because it's under silos, but just that sometimes UX is kept on like a different track and not really included in the development.
Does anybody else from that group have any comments that you want to share? Okay, we're going to move on to group number 4.
Ryan has agreed from our group to sort of talk through some of this, but I can help color if we need to. Ryan, you want to take it away?
Yep. So the things that we came up with were sort of, it's often hard for teams to decide who should have access to data. Teams can often have disagreements around priorities. And then a lot of times, it might not be clear what problem that we're even trying to solve. And that can get you headed down a direction that can make, be pretty tough for everybody involved and hurt the trust between teams. Was there anything else that the group wanted to add?
Much more of that. Sometimes it's very well communicated what the requirements are, but people have great interpretations of what it is based upon their own view and what their own abilities are, their own focuses.
Yeah, and like, there's no way to 100% know, everything that you need to solve the problem on the front end. And so if you are just like having those communications and you don't have a touch point or any kind of prototype throughout the process, miscommunications are inevitable.
Okay, thank you, Group 4. So for Group 5, actually Bailey is going to present for us. So let me pop over to our screen and invite Bailey to.
Hello, can you scroll? Great. So oftentimes we found that we often look to the business to get those requirements, but those requirements can occasionally be very slow to get, like a lot of back and forth. They can also be very generic and not really have as much information as what we need. So it really seems like communication issues between what the business thinks that we need versus what we expect from the business. Moving on, our timelines and resources are often set by leadership that maybe doesn't understand like all of the complexities of the effort. So if there's resources and timelines that are being set by somebody who's maybe not involved in the day-to-day, they don't really understand. And I mean, I work for a utility, Ameren, and sometimes even our requirements are set by like regulating bodies. So that can also pose additional challenges as well. And then lastly, just how the different groups approach problems are very different. I mean, when you talk to a lot of engineers, at least in my experience, they are super enthusiastic and they want to jump straight into solutioning. Where sometimes like our UX team wants to take that step back and think about, are we solving the right problem? What do their users really need? And so that kind of causes a little bit of headbutting because our developers are thinking, why don't you guys want to go? Like, come on, like pick up the pace. And we're thinking, do you even know if you're solving the right problem? And so it's once again, like more communication struggles.
Does anybody else from Group 5 want to add anything? Okay, some really interesting stuff here, you all. And guess what? We're going to go back and it's going to be a tightly constrained time again. But what we're going to ask you to do now is to think about with these 3 challenges, and your group can change them if you want, or you can stick with the ones you have. But we're going to ask you to think about and brainstorm some bridges or some solves or some things you could do that might help with those. So we're going to go back into the groups. You'll have a facilitator and they'll scribe again for the group. So let's head back into the breakout rooms and we'll see what we come up with.
Okay, I'm going to open the rooms. Everyone should see a invitation. I think everybody, oh, look, Matt's outstanding in this field. So I think we're all back.
Wonderful. Okay. So very curious to hear what you all came up with. And I want to put this bug in your ear as we are having this conversation. Listen very carefully to what your colleagues are sharing, because then we have another question for you that will relate to what we're about to share. Okay. So this is the time when, if you're going to be, doing other stuff, take a pause and listen carefully, because we have an important question when we're done. All right. So group number 1, let me share my screen. And if you need me again to make something bigger, let me know if you're not able to see it. Who would like to share for group number 1?
I'll go ahead and give it a go unless someone else would like to. I think our idea that came out of this one for one of the major ones, this is a very tightly packed note, but basically it's better documentation with a little bit of instruction on if you need to do this type of thing, it's going to be a document out of it. Or if you have a spike, we need to have another design document out of it. If we need to talk to you through the design, we're going to have a design doc out of that. So we need to understand what those documents are and then have a clear definition of ready and done for those tasks or those documents. And then our second theme was around that communication to the executives or to maybe the business leaders who don't realize they're the only project in the room or going on at that moment. So having them attend your stand-ups, whether that's daily or weekly, That lets them see and have that visibility into what the team is doing. Maybe if there's multiple projects going on, that lets them see that there's other stakeholders next to them that are in line as well. So it might be help with some of that visibility.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Anybody else from group one have anything? All right, let's move on to group number two.
I think you're going to get, this is Matt Harris, for speaking for group two. If no one else wants to speak, that's fine as well. But I think you're going to see a lot of overlap between the groups, because we also thought that open communication and knowledge sharing was really important, especially early in the project, where you can eliminate bad ideas or misunderstood requirements without having to waste everybody's time. And being able to communicate those ideas is really important as well, to have everyone have that accessible documentation for everybody on the project so that everyone is on the same page.
Okay, does anybody else, or do you have anything else that you want to share from that group? Okay, let's hop over to group number three. Okay, group number three. Let's hear your best ideas.
All right, so our first one kind of centers around having every kind of party available and in the meetings or part of the discussion, not only on day one, but throughout hopefully the whole project. You know, an ideal agile kind of set situation, and kind of building on that, kind of like the next level that we thought of that would be even better than that would be kind of rotational cross training, getting everyone familiar with each other's worlds and kind of understanding truly how there aren't really any silos. All of these facets really impact each other on a daily basis.
Any additional comments from that group? Right, it's interesting how we're hearing similar themes throughout. Let's go to group number four.
Yeah, so I could talk to this one, but we didn't get to designate someone. So one of the big things we had challenge-wise was the data availability or like access concerns around it. And so one of the solutions that we had, and I just picked some ideas, so apologies to the group if I didn't pick your favorite one. So one is just like transparency around these decisions. And it really comes down to just communicating, right? Why do we need to restrict this information? You know, why is this data restricted to certain groups? Or making it clear the other direction. Why do we need access in order to either make our decisions or to build our product, right? There's a lot, it's a two-way street when it comes down to it. The other discussion was around like requirements that were either not well communicated or received differently or interpreted differently by people. And so the biggest standout that a lot of people got on board with was generating requirements together, not just by one group dictating requirements and saying, hey, IT, go build this thing, getting everyone in there, or even going so far as to embed different roles on the same team, right? We're having a UX person sitting alongside your engineers who are, you know, sitting alongside someone else who can help your product owner, your business. Everybody being involved sort of tightens that communication gap about requirements and produces that was a lot of good ideas thrown out.
All right, let's move to group number 5, and I believe Kim speaking for us.
So I found this interesting because I haven't actually started my UX career. I've just finished schooling, so I'm kind of naive and still listening to everyone talk about their things. So these felt like the biggest trends happening. So the first one is we stole from Hamilton, someone being in the room when it happened. So when the budget's being made, if someone who actually was working on the project could speak up and say, well, these are what we need would be helpful. It actually, having someone in the room that's going to be working on the project or a stakeholder at many stages would help the other issues we had as well. The second one that we picked was story mapping as a way to kind of meet in the middle between UXers and software development, you know, everyone likes a story, and it really does help people to, you know, empathize and connect with each other. And then the last one that we picked was more of a practical thing, and it, in general, just having examples or templates of what we're needing. Like when they create the project they want us to work on, if they know what we're going to need ahead of time, it takes out a lot of the guesswork, and they can already see a checklist that they can work through. So that's one of our practical suggestions.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And we had planned on asking you a particularly challenging question at this moment. And so I'm going to stop, and I'm going to look to my co-collaborator Kit and say, do we want to ask that question after the break, or do we want to go ahead and ask it now?
I'd say let's take a break real quick since we're at over an hour.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay.
So,
Lisa, can you ask it to us and then let it marinate over the break?
Or, okay, actually I will. So we're going to take 5 minutes, get a drink, go to the restroom, whatever. So the big question that we hear all the time, should I give it away, Kit? What do you think?
I think they're ready.
All right. Okay, so great. Give me a business reason for this. Like, can you attach a number to this, or can you give me some metrics? Like, can you tell me why we would do this? So when you think about the folks that you have to answer to, when you think about your management, when you think about your stakeholders, all of these ideas that we've generated, can you come up with good reasons and ways to measure what kind of impact this will have on your work? So we're going to come back. We're going to have a quick conversation about that. We're going to put you on the spot just a little bit. Then Kit and I are going to talk about our suggestions for how this all works. And I believe we're going to hit most of what we have here. So is that clear? We're going to take 5 minutes. Everybody enjoy your break, and we'll be back. All right, welcome back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to jump in and talk about these ideas. And if you need me to pull up the board, I will, but I'd rather just kind of be able to see faces. But if you're like, hey, can you pull up the board and go to group whatever, I'll do that. So the $1 million question, sometimes it really is a $1 million question. So these all sound great, but like, show me the business value. So who would like to jump into the fray and talk about the business value of some of our bridges that we proposed? I will call on you.
I'll jump in. So I actually, one of my last jobs I got by doing something like this, by pulling these numbers, but essentially we were doing repeat work because two departments weren't talking to each other, and I was able to pull up how many projects each one was done and then run the, you know, average pay per man hour and then show how much that is versus what I proposed. And it was, you know, like a $30,000 difference. And that's how I was able to get the particular project to go through. So just showing how much wasted man hours really does speak to the bottom line.
Did you have any difficulty getting to how to quantify wasted man hours?
A little bit. I have to be honest, we talked about it in our group a little bit. It helped that EC is not as data savvy as me, so I didn't have to explain as deeply as I needed to. But yeah, the biggest issue was just getting a hold of all the various information, and you know, HR doesn't want you to know the precise pay per hour, so I asked someone that was higher up in the company than me to actually run the final numbers so that I wasn't like, oh, that person's making this much and that person's making that much. But it didn't matter. The numbers were so high that even if they were making minimum wage, it would have been ridiculous. So
okay. So let's do a couple, and then we're going to have to keep moving because I know that we're going to run late on time, and we do actually have a presentation that we want to share with you as well. I want to ask about the communication ones. There were lots of things in here about improved communication and having different people from different teams communicating with each other, setting in on meetings. And I saw that theme throughout. So would somebody like to speak to me about an idea about how you could quantify the value of having that cross-pollination on teams?
Well, I'd say that on having the cross-pollination of teams and having all the people with different roles be in the same room together, working together, especially making requirements together, it makes it so there's way less slosh over into other sprints from the same, when you're working on sprints, there's way less carryover in the next sprint. Things get done properly, correctly. Everyone knows exactly what the requirements are, feels CV made right in front of them. And that will lead to a faster product being out there. It's more accurate, doesn't have to be changed later on. It'll cut down sprints in the future. I would say probably at least a 20% reduction of actual time spent in the project and spent in the features by doing that. It made saturation out.
Where do you think you could pull those numbers from? Do you have any idea of how we could get to those kinds of numbers?
Oh, if you had a team, you could usually see this. You could see how quickly things are being closed down and done, how quickly there are new features actually making out to prod and not being redone, worked back on again, how many bugs are propping up. It would actually take some metrics. I do not have them handy, of course, but I'm a man of my word.
Well, we will look forward to seeing some of those, but anybody else on this one?
Yeah, I was going to tag on to that. In addition, I think sometimes people are reticent to spend time on the front end to really talk things through and even complete analysis because it feels like you're delaying the beginning. But I think you see usually, what is the saying? Like it takes the time it takes, so it takes less time. And I think that if you put the work on the front end, ultimately the project gets done sooner. And I think you can reflect that in what were the anticipated timelines versus, what was the actual delivery. And then along with all those points that Charles just made on metrics, I think another one would be how much scope expansion did you have, for each of your efforts beyond what you originally planned. One would assume that if you talk things through a lot up front, you probably have mitigated quite a bit of that.
I see that we have Ben and Spencer. So let's do Ben next.
Yeah, I'd love to defend rotational training. I think it gives you a one-to-one ratio. You're not losing anything. It increases diversity of thought and perspectives by bringing other disciplines in and unlocks new pathways in the brain that's a company. And you'd also increase resiliency by expanding the capabilities of team members, giving them the ability to cover other roles. And also it makes people accountable to each other because if Bob's tossed onto Susan's team, he's going to want to make life better for her naturally because he's on the team too and they all work together. So you're getting someone and you're giving someone. I don't think you lose anything by doing that. So it's you can only go up, you can only win.
Thank you. So we have two more, and then we're gonna probably wrap it up. I'm loving this conversation so much that I don't want to wrap it up, but I also want to keep us a little bit on time. So let's go to Ben. No, Ben, we just did. Spencer next, and then is it Kai? Yeah, so Ben and then Kai.
So it depends on how the team is measuring these things, but I would imagine one of the big ones that from our team was documentation. I actually saw that pop up a couple of different places, which I think on the surface could be hard to quantify in business term, but I think what you could probably point to is the effect downstream that has. So like some combination of like sprint velocity and how many things were released on time, like if there's any scope creep or uncommitted work that was done during the sprint versus like the opportunity cost of releases being delayed or the cost of outages or the cost of like improper spikes or whatever, or like any sort of like lack of de-risking involved in a project ahead of time. Like you should be able to point to some sort of like business cost or opportunity cost at the very end of that. And then you can start pointing to the things that failed that led to that point. So I think it depends on how you're measuring those things as a business though, with the specific metrics.
Thank you, Spencer. So Kai, and then we're going to try to wrap up. We will stick around and continue the conversation afterwards. But Kai, let's get to you.
Good news. Someone already covered what I was going to say, and my little hand thingy didn't go down. So we are good to proceed. Thanks, then.
Wonderful. Does anybody else have one burning thing that they want to say about how we demonstrate the value to business? Before Kit and I sort of tell you about the way we propose you might want to work and our secret sauce, so to speak.
Well, I was a little surprised that most of the comments were around decreasing timelines and not about increasing satisfaction of users and like revenue growth as a result of that. Because that to me seems like the most likely thing to happen. I think in fact you'll probably slow down when you first go to an agile framework as you work out the internal kinks.
Thank you, Ryan. So I think what we'll do now, if you would be willing to pop the presentation back up. So this is where we started from, right? Can you find yourself somewhere in this? And you might be looking at this like, what is this? So this is kind of a tangled mess of threads right here. And so we started out with these 3 different buckets of folks who work on projects. And our intention tonight, and there was a real method to this, which was that one, we wanted it to get to the point where we talk a little bit about how we've observed things might work and work better. But we also wanted to invite everybody into the conversation. And we wanted to have an experience because typically people don't really change their thought pattern. They don't change how they approach things without some kind of interaction. So this is kind of meta, but one of the reasons that we constructed the session the way we did is that we wanted y'all to have a chance to talk to each other and to do some brainstorming and to hear maybe where there's some overlaps or where there's some differences. So that was kind of the plan behind it all and why we approached it the way that we did. So hopefully you see yourself in 1 or maybe 2 or even 3 of these threads, and we're going to talk about how they actually get untangled and weave themselves into a rope.
And so this is kind of a big slide. Well, don't worry too much about all the detail on the slide because we're going to walk through this kind of in order. But the purpose of this is to say there is an order to these activities that we're going to go through, that they build on each other. A lot of times the input into the activities further to the right build on input that you got or learning that you got from activities done on the left. And so think of these as the tools in your tool belt that you can reach to help build those bridges. So starting with the first one.
So user interviews. I'm a user researcher by trade, but I've worked on a lot of heavier back-end projects. And so when I talk about interviews, what I'm talking about everything from interviews with engineers, developers, data engineers, the people who consume data, the people who produce data, to understand some of the questions and the problems that are going on. So we do contextual inquiry, we do interviews, we do some observation, but part of what we're after here, and this is where it's a little bit different, I invited in my engineers and other folks into the process. What I mean by that, and I know some researchers probably have that moment, when we sat down to write our discussion guide to plan what we were going to do, we started broad. How can we learn about the context? How can we learn about the bigger picture? And then we would shape those interviews so that we got that first, but then we were able to drill down into more detail. And that really required me being joined at the hip with someone who understood it in a more technical way. This is one of the ways that you can get at some of those requirements, but you start big enough that you understand the whole of the experience, and then you begin to move into more details. So that's really where we start. And so you'll see user experience leads it, but you're generally going to have somebody from data engineering or IT involved, and possibly also from the business. And then that leads to the next step.
And the reason it's so important to have both user experience and the data engineering side of the house in those interviews is I loved what people said about building bridges. It's really about having all those parties involved. And so having the data engineers involved in some of those interviews helps inform the next step, which we think is technical deep dive. So think of this as like interviews from the technical side of things. What does the database look like? What does the data look like? What technology is involved in the system and how does it work today? And the main goal of this is to create a lot of example artifacts. I think documentation came up a bunch of times. So this is really the documentation for the next steps. Architecture diagrams, data flow diagrams, those sorts of things where you can concisely communicate how the system is working today to other groups. Sometimes those are non-technical groups. And so really data engineers are going to lead this sorts of effort, but you're going to have input from the interviews done with end users and the business to inform where in the stack you're focusing and the pain points and what needs to be improved.
So that brings us to the personas and the journey maps. Now, one of the things that's a little bit trickier, and this is again where we keep the involvement of the technical folks and also the business. So what I have done is when we go and we gather this information, when we analyze it together, because there are going to be things that I see as an outsider, things that I observe because I'm not so deeply connected to it, and things that an engineer or that someone from the business might notice. So as we build this, as we begin to go through the process of honing in on what these personas and journey maps should be, we engage those folks. So personas, the humans involved, journey maps, the key points in the experience. And I want to make the distinction here. This is not the process flows. So they've done some technical process flow. This is that bigger picture of what are really the pain points? What are happening for the humans in this? What do we need to pay attention to and what might we change? What's so important about this? Well, of course, it builds empathy, not only for the folks that we're building things for, but what I've seen it do is it builds the empathy within the teams and within the folks who need to work together, because suddenly they're working together on the problem, and that really does change the relationship and the approach to the work, and that lays the groundwork for the next step.
So the next step being proof of concept, which is taking everything you've learned up until this point, what technology you have, what needs to be made better, what you're trying to build, and start small. So start with the smallest possible system using the right tech and try to prove out what you're trying to do, not only from a technical perspective, but also from a user experience perspective, because it gotta get both parts right. And so again, data engineers are probably going to be actually building the thing, leading that effort, but all of it is informed, in their direction for the POC is heavily informed by the users and the business.
Okay, so this is my favorite part of this process, because I think it is the part where the threads, if you'll notice, really start to come together. So what is story mapping? People sometimes like, what is that? It's basically where we get people together and we list and we prioritize the things that the system needs to do. Now, you may have to adapt it for a data project. I've had to, normally you start with the personas and you say, as a, when I need to, and you walk through their path. You may have to play with that a little bit to get to how to structure it. But what you're after is the conversation that happens between these three groups. So we have user experience involved, we have the engineering folks, and we have the business involved. Why is this so important? This is critical. If you don't want to find yourself in that position of what, the business wants one thing and IT says another, this is the place where that conversation can happen. And ultimately, it doesn't matter so much what they decide, but it matters that they pick a direction and that you document that, not down to the absolute nth degree, but that we get some agreement on what our alignment and prioritization is. And this is, I think, if you take nothing else away, there's some great books about it. but you will have to play with a little bit for a technical or a more back-end project. This piece really makes everything else possible and everything else flow.
And the reason having the story map is so critical is I think one of the bridges a group brought up is, having someone in the room when it happened. Well, the story map is having everyone in the room when it happened initially, but you're not going to have everyone all the time. So the story map is the documentation from that alignment and that decision, so that you can go back and point out every decision that you made, the direction you were going, to somebody else, easily communicate that. Because the next step is really, now once you have your direction, how are we going to get there? So building out the roadmap, the milestones, what are the points that you're going to be able to deliver value to your stakeholders, and how, from an engineering side, are we going to do that? So what's the plan? Breaking it down into epics and stories. This is kind of your normal agile processes here now, where they start to kick in. So it's going to be a collaboration among the team. I'm not going to dive too much into agile, but whatever your kind of normal process is, while including all those different folks. And the reason is, organize the team towards a common goal, understand the milestones that you're working towards, and also communicate your progress towards those priorities.
Which brings us to the last piece here, which is what happens as we move forward, refinement and iteration. So Kit mentioned the normal agile ceremonies, those are going on. The other thing that needs to happen, and this is true even when there's not an immediate UI, is evaluating the user's experience. That can be done in a lot of different ways. But what we want to do is we want to be in a cyclical, iterative process where we build something, we go see how it works for folks. It allows us to address things as we build. And here's the other piece that's really important. It helps us, we have to be able to connect the dots. And when I say that, what I mean is, if I go and I interview or I watch some engineers work, and I watch a tool that we've been working on, and we make some observations, and then we go back and we make some changes, not only do I circle back to them and say, hey, this is what I learned from you, and this is what we did. We listened to you, we valued your time. I also surface that up to other folks because we want it to be very visible. We want people to know they've been heard, and we also want people to get the understanding of how this can work, right? That we try something and then we maybe tweak it, but that we continuously evaluate what's happening for folks, even on more technical things that don't have a UI.
And even if these projects don't have a UI, I think oftentimes we tie value to a visual representation, a web app or a mobile app, something that people can see. The end users in data projects are often highly technical folks, so business analysts, other engineers, or developers on other teams, data scientists. And so often for them, having something that's just like, maybe it's a database schema full of fake data that they can query, using a BI tool to connect to some backend data store. Those are the types of things that would help prove you're going in the right direction, because it's using the tools that they're familiar with instead of a normal web application or mobile app or something like that. So if you take away anything from this presentation, we tried to boil it down to a few points. The main point here, the first one, is really building empathy among the groups. I think this came up pretty frequently in our bridge building scenario too. It's that keeping that communication open. It should be a joint effort between user experience and the data engineers on the team, and trying to make sure that everyone is involved in the solutioning up front so that they're aligned. They understand the priorities going into delivery.
So the second point we would really like to get across is that it's cyclical, right? The discovery and delivery, they don't stop just at, there's not just a discovery period. I mean, there is that, But then we continue to discover and deliver and learn things and surface those and make changes based on those. And making sure that is clear to people, I think it's really important that it is a very cyclical process.
And to Lisa's point there of having it be cyclical, I think it helps to think of software as a living, breathing thing that needs care and feeding over its lifetime. And just because at the end of a project, once you hit a date, doesn't mean that whatever software you're developing stops needing that care and feeding. So I think instead of thinking of software development in the terms of projects, think of it in terms of a product, and that you're releasing something into the world that you're going to have to very intentionally take care of or decommission at some point, but it doesn't stop when the project ends. You're still going to have maintenance, bug fixes, enhancements, all that sort of thing that goes into a good software product.
And I think the final point, and I can't stress this enough, is how we work together matters. So all of the ideas that you generated tonight, even if you think they're going to be difficult or impossible, if you can make just a little incremental change, right? If you can find ways to build those bridges, to have those conversations, people want to be heard and they like to collaborate. And when you're able to create that loop, it really does change how we work. And I think it will have a large impact over time on what you're doing. So that is what we had to share with you. We are here for questions or further conversation if you would like to discuss anything. And then also I'll go ahead and if you could drop that into Holly, into the chat. We would love to get your feedback on tonight, how it was for you, if you would like to stay involved in the conversation. Kit and I have been working on this for a while and really talking about this, and we would love to keep talking with you about it right now or later.
I think you guys did a fantastic job tonight, and I really appreciate everything you had to share. I think there was a huge group of people who stayed all the way through to the end, which is fantastic. Is there anyone who'd like to share like a takeaway that was really helpful for them? Or something that they think they're gonna take to work?
I actually love the idea of like structured stakeholder or technical interviews. I feel like oftentimes whenever I'm like building the documentation or like building the spec for something, that conversation either happens like async or it's kind of a, hey, you have some time to chat about this and grab some time on the calendar. Like it's not this actual structured documented process that I think could help these conversations have a little bit more focused and like really clearly defined outcomes that like just help with alignment and expectations and stuff. Like I'm actually really excited to dig into that more. I'd also like after we do this part, I'd also like to learn a little bit more about like how people actually go about doing that and some thoughts or ideas around that would be helpful.
I know with my team, we just this week went through some product specs together, and it was really helpful to do it. You know, it's something that's normally done independently or asynchronously, and it was really, really helpful to go through and look at what are the assumptions that are being made, what are any sort of questions or gaps that weren't in the documentation, and what are the features that were being identified in the user stories. And I thought it was super helpful to work collaboratively on that. So I think spot on. Anyone else, would you like to share something that you felt like was really beneficial that maybe you could implement right away?
I just thought it was interesting to see that even though we're all in different companies and roles, that a lot of the same things came up. And it's cool that we, have a lot of different suggestions from all the different teams, and then from Lisa and Kit that we could try to implement at our various companies.
Yeah, I think for me, the value of this is like you said, Amanda, just seeing how different people do it. And as much as I would like to believe that each of us on this call, I was on mute, I was talking and I didn't.
No, you're good. We heard you.
Oh, did you?
You can
Okay.
continue.
My system is so screwy. So, but the thing is, as much as I would like to think, it's true that everyone on this call works in a modern software shop. That just isn't true, right? And all of these things that sound so great and so obvious and so easy, really, when you just talk about it, just aren't happening in a lot of places. And so for me, it's valuable to hear other people telling stories where it is working, where they have done things that work, that I can take back. And if nothing else, just say, see, it's not just me saying this. I talk to people who are actually doing it. And that's the value of a conversation like this for me.
I think one of the things that we have really been beating our heads up against, from my perspective, is this whole question of people often look at this process and they're like, this sounds great. This sounds great. We'd love to do this. And then we get into it and like, no, we don't want to do this. We need to hurry up. We need to hurry up. We don't want to do this. And so that was one of the things that we've really been trying to get our arms around, is how to, everyone thinks it sounds like a good idea, but that it doesn't happen. So why isn't it happening? How can we make it happen? Or is it just not realistic? So that's one of the things that we are chewing on.
Yeah, for me in my situation and a lot of the people that I work with on different projects, what it comes down to is people saying, we want to be agile, but we don't want to have to change anything. It's like, okay, you're agile, poof.
Why wasn't I part of the planning? But then, like when we were like, hey, we're adopting agile within the product engineering organization, like these are like we've got some planning coming up. Would you like to be a part of it? No, I'm good.
Yep.
But then how can you communicate with us what it is that you need? Like, yeah.
The struggle is real.
Well, we are way over time, and I do not want to continue to keep anyone, but I also don't want to stop the conversation if anyone's interested in continuing. Did you want to, I know Lisa, you shared in the chat again the link to the document, and you've gone ahead and changed the permission, so everyone should be able to access that. And thank you both so much. And did you want to share your contact information again? Did you have any follow-up contact info? I know you were interested in continuing, seeing if there were people who wanted to continue to talk about this.
I think probably the easiest way to find us is on LinkedIn. Both Kit and I are on LinkedIn. If you want to reach out that way, we both are at 1904 Labs. We would love to chat with you about this if you want to continue the conversation. I know it's like, oh, it sounds all well and good, and it's hard to get this to happen, but it does sometimes happen. And I think one of the things that I have seen is there's a tremendous benefit to everyone involved when we're able to get a little bit more of this process happening. So hit us on LinkedIn.
And also absolutely welcome to carry the conversation over to the STLX Slack. Our 1904 Labs pals are super welcome and always glad to have you. And would be thrilled to have you come hang out there and chat some more. So that's another place that you can come and interact. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I think you all did a fantastic job. The 1904 crew killed it. Thanks so much to the STLX team. You all are amazing. You rock my socks on a regular basis. And thanks to everybody for coming. We hope you had a fantastic evening, and we'll see you again really soon, we hope, at our next event. Thanks so much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kip.
Bye-bye.